Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Frame by Frame podcast, your ultimate podcast for all things UX and UI. The main theme of this week is going to be about mentorship, and we're going to be looking at some concepts and asking such questions as why would I need a mentor? What are the types of mentoring methods? Where can I find a mentor? How will a mentor help me in the short term and the long term? And anything and everything else that mentorship can cover. We will also be talking about the mentorship or even coaches in boot camps and also outside of boot camps. And I know that generally for the format of the podcast, we bring up a general topic, but occasionally one of us will have a topic that we really want to bring to the fore, something that is usually based on what is trending right now. And my co-host will would well he will would like to talk about mentorship. So Will, maybe give us all an introduction about mentorship in the world of design in general, and then maybe specifically about UX and UI.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so if you're in the bootcamp world already, the actual specific term mentor may be used to describe the person helping you out or the person helping you understand your assignments or grading your assignments. Uh, that one I think is pretty self-explanatory. Like you know what they're supposed to do. Sorry about the crash. I just broke something, and they're there to help guide you. Now, outside of the bootcamp world, once you graduate, or if you never even entered in the first place, you may be looking for someone to help you just answer the questions of what you should be doing to get farther. Of course, that applies to really anything, but also product and UI and UX and everything like that. I think that's a very good, brief, high level view.
Yeah, would you guys say that the boot camps classify your mentor correctly?
In what way? You mean as in perhaps uh, personality, ambitions, approach to the work?
I would say, like personally, my mentor was I one of my mentors I didn't feel was really a mentor as much as somebody who was kind of just breezing through the required material.
Yeah. Do we think actually this?
Gotcha.
I'm glad you brought that up actually because I'm thinking, obviously, with any boot camp, like with any company, you'll get good and bad specialists or people at their job who just have a knack for it, and those who don't. Do we think that? Well, I think this answers itself. I think credibility is important, but do we think that the best mentor or a really good mentor is someone who necessarily has y- all or a lot of experience, or perhaps someone who may not have as much experience as another mentor, but they may have better people skills, for example?
I think people skills go a long way, so it's absolutely helpful if first I'll start by saying I don't feel like a mentor needs 10 plus years of experience.
Oh, no, if they did, they wouldn't get a job anyway in UX design.
Yeah. No, I don't. It's really hard to say. I don't think they need the, you know,
No, I'm just
su-
being a bit whimsical there. No, that's
oh, it's fine. No, no, I don't think. I mean, obviously, if somebody has a lot of experience, they're going to have more advice to give or be able to guide you in ways maybe somebody with less experience can't. But that's not to downgrade somebody with less experience because I've met people who I would happily ask questions to because they are knowledgeable and they communicate very well. So I think it's yeah, it's hard to put your finger on it because somebody with less experience, if you're using them as a mentor, maybe in that sense, as them being a mentor, it's more somebody to get advice or bounce ideas off of, and maybe get a clear. It's almost like talking out loud at that point. Like you're hearing your own
Yeah.
questions, and maybe that's just what you need.
Well, sometimes though, even if you get the best and someone's the best at something, it doesn't necessarily mean they can teach. I mean, for example, from one of my hobbies, bowling. I'm pretty good at bowling, but I couldn't teach someone outside of a few basic principles. I can't teach my technique, even though I can do really well with it. So, do we think that even if someone has a little bit more experience, that perhaps that their teaching method or their way of imparting their experience and knowledge upon a mentee, as I call it, they might not just be as good at conveying the knowledge and experience as someone else who has less experience.
I as we mentioned earlier, I think the people skills are what's most important here because like a mentor can rattle off everything that maybe I should do, but if they can't deliver that advice in a way that actually makes me want to follow it, then I'm not going to follow it. So personally going to need someone who has the solid people skills. Now, I don't even need like extensive experience in a mentor. I just need someone with more experience than I have in the area that I need help with, even if that's like 1 month. That's really all it is
It's
for me.
They have more information than you do at that point. Yeah, so that that they're filling that gap, and you're able to get that information that you need, or the advice you're seeking.
Yeah, well, it's also to do with a person's learning system. I mean, I'm sure that I can't recall it exactly when, but I know that when I've had the odd person try to teach me something, and it's not against them what they know, it's just that the learning system clashes. They may put things across in a way I don't understand, whereas someone else could put something in a way that to someone else might seem convoluted or long-winded. But for me, that'd be my way of understanding it. I mean, even when I was, when I was a trainer, when I was training people up, I always had my way of doing things that I was comfortable passing on the knowledge and experience. um, not saying as in it was a way that worked for everyone, although having said that, all of my trainees, I can say categorically, were really happy with the way they got the training. However, for all I know, when they were going live in the department I was training them up for, maybe a few of them did struggle. I don't know because I didn't really get informed about that. But I think it's also how someone learns. I think you just have to have a mesh of someone being able to teach and someone being able to learn.
Where Yeah, and where should somebody look for these people? Like that's personally that's the hardest part of finding a mentor for myself. I think I went through 3 or 4 different people. I still have one mentor that we don't talk as much. I was actually just talking to Will about that. We're both very busy, which is totally understandable. But it's still reassuring to know that if something is going on, or I do have a nagging question, or I need some kind of feedback or advice, I can always send out a message and I hear back, and it's like, yes, we can set up a time to chat. And they're usually more than happy to do that. But then I've had other ones where I talked to them once and the experience was not great. And I think it's more of a personality clash, or maybe even just, I think sometimes it's also how the person carries themselves. Like, they can be, I don't want to say like nose up, but I think some people are they have an ego. Yeah. And so they're carrying that ego with them. And sometimes that doesn't make for quite a nice experience. Or yeah, maybe they think their advice has more weight than it really does, or I don't know. So I personally don't know how you guys found mentors, or how you're continuing to find mentorship or get advice, but um, I I found my favorite one on ADP list actually, and they're great. I know it's trial and error, so I can't just say like, yeah, go on there, you'll find one you love. Like, yeah, that might be the case, but you're going to have to really take some time and look. But what you put in for sure is what you're going to get out of it.
Mm. I would say with my mentor personally, I had a good experience with him. He was he was he was complimentary about some of the things I did right. He wasn't just someone who only focuses on the things you didn't get right, but he was also very he gave me good critique, but in a way that wasn't uh, patronizing or fluffed up or anything like that. I mean, I've heard that some people, some of our fellow alumni, are they had to change mentors once, maybe even twice. For me, I must admit, when it comes to looking for a mentor in something, I mean, I'm generally, and I don't say this out of arrogance, although people have often mistook this about me, well, misunderstood this. I'll be honest, I've not really had mentors in life, so to speak. I mean, in the past, there's, like, for example, a couple of therapists in the past who I've known for a very, very, very long time. They're also personal friends of mine. But to be honest, I think based on how I've had to get through life and my own background, childhood, and everything else, I've never really needed a mentor in the sense of someone to have to hold my hand. It's usually more just advice or just spend a little bit of time with someone just to learn a few things. But for me, I wouldn't say I would necessarily seek out a mentor. It's usually more I like to find out the nucleus of something and then explore it myself. I like to do things in a way where it's a journey of discovery. I don't want someone to tell me all of the answers because I need to work it out for myself. But personally, I had a good mentor. I wasn't displeased or dissatisfied with the feedback or anything that he provided, and he used to give me some tips and from design situations he had in his professional career, which I always think was good. But for me, if I do seek a mentor, I would need someone who knows more than I do, because if it's like when in one of my old jobs when I had been a trainer before I had joined this company, I was a trainer when I was in this company, and yet my manager was saying that I still need to learn how to be a trainer when I had more experience than the other trainers there. And that was the thing. This was just before I left, actually, because I had got transferred. So I'm referring to the department I was transferred to. But for me, the credibility is the main thing. So I can forgive if someone needs to take a little longer to explain something to me, but they need to know more than I do about the subject. Otherwise, I find it very hard to devote full time learning when someone who doesn't have as much experience or skills as what I may have in my given field. Yeah, I'm not saying I can't learn anything, but I wouldn't want full time mentorship with someone who I feel I can't learn from, if that makes sense.
Yeah, then I would say they're probably not the mentor for you. If you get no benefit from talking to them or bringing up issues, then there's no.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a point.
Well, in my personal life, I've got three people who therapists who are like mentors in a way, helped me significantly over the last, well, nearly 10 years since I've been in Germany. But in terms of knowledge, in terms of things where I feel comfortable making the mistakes or learning, yeah, I wouldn't say I really need a mentor. It's usually more, I just prefer to just get given a couple of tips, something I can work with.
Do you still communicate with your mentor from your boot camp?
Uh, Actually, no, neither my mentor nor with my tutor. I mean, I have them on LinkedIn, and I'll probably send them a hi or something, or perhaps when I've got full-time gainful employment, then I'll probably mention it to them. But no, I'm not really. I'm not in contact with them, not because I don't want to be. It's just one of those things. We graduate from the boot camp, we're excited, we start looking for jobs, we do more networking, and by the time you realize, or you might think about them, a couple of weeks have gone past, and you're thinking, well, they've got mentees, people they're mentoring. We've got jobs to look out for. We've got new connections established, and you really just don't find the time, in my view, anyway. I mean, they're family people, they've got full-time jobs. It's not always going to be a case of you'll hear back from them quite quickly or anything. And sometimes when you get swamped with messages, you generally just see the newest ones, and then because of lack of time, I think you forget, or you're just not aware that there are probably some messages from a month ago that you've not seen because you weren't active, say on LinkedIn or any given messenger program at that time.
And what about you, Will? Do you currently have a mentor? I know you were kind of mentoring some people.
I hmm. I pretty much consider my boss. He's the again the founder of the startup that I work with. He's probably the person who I learn the most from at the moment. So I learned a lot of product knowledge from him, a little bit of marketing stuff, a little bit of community stuff. It's been a lot to learn over the last 8-ish months. Um, but first and foremost, like he's like my boss and the leader of the product. He's the head of product. Um, but so like I don't really slap the mentor title on him, but I do participate in his mentorship. I learn from it. Um, outside of that, I'm not sure if I would give really anyone the mentorship title. I mean, I learn from you guys. I learn from a lot of other people that I'm friendly with, but that doesn't exactly have to mean that they have the title of mentor. Um, I'm not sure how many times I would have to reach out to someone one on one and ask to hang out with me over Zoom or Google Meet for me to give them that title. Um, but as it pertains to my career friendly mentors, no, I do not speak with them at the moment. I do plan on thanking them once, similar to what Cross said. Once I do land full time salary, I do plan on thanking them. Um, but no, I don't have that contact anymore.
Have you, I guess, considered finding not even just to learn from, but just as an advice giver, like again to run thoughts or ideas
Hmm.
by? Have you thought about picking up another mentor?
Not really, because I. Hmm. It's tricky because I learn the most from like the people I'm friendly with. So you guys, I have a friend Colleen. In case anyone has seen Colleen Ballesteros over on LinkedIn, she
Yeah,
also did
I'm
Career
connected
Foundry.
with
She
her.
graduated. Yeah, yeah, she's a good friend of mine. We met after I graduated. We message each other on Facebook now, and we do webinars together and stuff.
I saw that
She
post
has
with your
spent.
webinar. I
Hmm.
saw it
Hmm.
on the odd
That
chance
was
I was
fun.
on
We're
LinkedIn.
probably Yeah, we're probably doing some another event like that this coming week. But I learned a lot from her. She knows a lot more about job seeking than I do. Um, and then I'm friends with Jared Williams. He is pretty prolific in the AI image generation space over on LinkedIn. He's a ton of fun to learn from. So yeah, I participate in mentorship from those people, but I also think all these people are just friends, and I know I can just message them whenever. But no one that's just dedicated purely just to trying to learn from. And of course, it's totally fine to be friends with people who are mentorship roles. Um, I feel like I'm giving half answers.
Yeah, I don't. It For me, it's tough to mentor people. I don't mind giving people advice. I don't mind talking to people. I know David Knight We talk regularly. I wouldn't say I mentor
Nice.
him, but I'm more than happy to answer people's questions and just chit chat and whatever. And maybe to them that is being a mentor. I don't really know because I don't put the label to myself. I know for me personally, when I do chat with my mentor, it's more to catch up, thank them for the bits of advice that they had when I did have questions. And now it's really funny because I think it's been maybe over a month since I've actually talked to spoken with my mentor for more than a quick message or two. But no, it's funny because now I feel like a peer to them, but I still value any information that they do give or any kind of advice they might have if I'm in a situation and I'm like, hey, I don't know what to do about this. And since you've been doing this for a lot longer than I have, what do you think? Um, I find that helpful, but yeah, again, I don't have like a daily conversation with anybody anymore, and I'm actually away from seeking like any type of like full-time mentorship at the moment as well.
Hmm.
Firstly, because I think it's a little difficult to find a mentor right now because if somebody is mentoring and they are part of a layoff, you do run the chance, I think, of losing your mentor in a heartbeat because now they are no longer your mentor. They're somebody who's competing for position in a job. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but that's how I feel. Some
Hmm.
people react. Um, but yeah, uh, I definitely would suggest people seek out mentorship or advice from peers or even people with more experience just because it can only benefit you. Like if you're as a good example, I was working on something and there was somebody I was working with and it was kind of a really tough situation, and I brought that up to my mentor and they're like, man, it's not new, this happens all the time. And I was like, okay, so I'm not just like, it's not just in my head, like this isn't crazy. And they're like, no, this is just something that happens, it's normal. I was like, okay. And then that made me like feel better about not only my position, but what was going on. It gave me a little reassurance that I wasn't looking into something more than what was happening, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I have a little bit of a spin on the mentorship conversation. If you guys like to hear it, it's something I've been thinking about for the past week. Um, I have attended so many webinars and online events after graduating from the boot camp, trying to learn how to rack up real world experience, trying to learn how to job seek better. And it's funny because after attending like two, you realize like, oh, a lot of these are giving the same information or very similar information. And then I've continued to attend a bunch because I like to participate in the community. But I've realized that I'm seeing a lot of the same people in a lot of webinars. And it almost makes me think like, oh, well, mentorship, I mean, the goal is so that you don't need mentorship anymore, so that you know what you're doing. So the ideal situation, and this would never happen, but the ideal situation would be one session of mentorship and then you're golden. But again, I'm starting to see like the same names and the same faces in a lot of webinars. And so it kind of makes me think like, hmm, I wonder like how many webinars or how much mentorship these people need to get before they actually start doing what they hear and then learning from what they do and then implementing changes. And once you develop that loop, you don't need mentorship anymore because you've built the muscles of how to learn and adapt.
I guess,
Um, mhm.
not to interrupt, but I guess I'm wondering if we maybe have our definitions of mentorship a little twisted, or people in general, like because I've my entire life I've viewed mentors as not just a one-time person. It's somebody that no matter what situation you come across, you have somebody to not learn from, but just to run it by and just get there. You know, even if you screw something up, they're going to be the one to not tell you the answer, but they're going to point out like, maybe did you look at it this way? And it's like hinting in the direction you need to go. And it's somebody that's, I always view a mentor as, yeah, maybe they're not going to be like your weekly contact to run things by, but throughout your career, it's somebody send a phone call to and catch up like, hey, this is what I'm up to. It's good to see that you're doing this. And, oh yeah, by the way, I, did this, and this, and they're going to bounce things back at you at the same time. Like, oh, that sounds great, but have you thought about, um, I don't want to say a career coach either, but I always thought of a mentor as more like somebody you have this long-term career long relationship with that you keep coming back to not only just update on how things are going, but maybe see how they're going. If tell them about a project you're working on, and maybe you are stuck on something, but it's not like you run to them for an answer. It's just somebody you run to with like, okay, I'm stuck on this problem. Can you just listen to it and maybe tell me if I'm thinking wrong about it or something? Whereas I think a lot of people, yeah, to me, I don't know. I've heard that from a lot of people who do mentor. They're like, man, if you call me to get a portfolio review, I'll do your portfolio review, but that's all you're going to get out of it. Like, that's it. It's not a mentorship. You're just getting a portfolio
Mhm.
review. If you come to me for answers, I might not necessarily give you answers, but if I never hear from you again, or I don't learn more about you as a person and we don't have a continual relationship, then what's the point? Like, there's no
Mhm.
long-term benefit of having a mentor at that point. Like, you're not, it's not a class. You're not there to sit there and they give you all the magic answers and you turn around and poof. Like, I don't know, that maybe I think people might have the wrong idea about it, or maybe I have the wrong idea about it. Because I just assume it's a long-term thing that you like commit yourself somehow. Like, okay, it's not just to find the job. If that's your goal, super. Like, I know mentors who that's their thing. Like, I will mentor you. I'll get you ready for the job market. And in my personal use of a mentor, it's for me, it's more long term. Like, I want somebody in 10 years I can kick back and be like, wow, I can't believe you're in the position you are. That's super. Hey, look what you've helped me accomplish. Thank you for that. And by the way, I did maybe something stupid on this design. Can you give me a little feedback?
That's definitely a healthier definition and view of what a mentor is or a good mentor is. Um, I guess we've the job seeker or the job seeker crowd, I guess, is more in need of short term. I don't even know if that's accurate because you want a job and you want a job now, or you want to be a good enough designer now so that you can get a job. And then, I mean, a lot of people want to just be able to relax and sit in their job because they did it. Um, but then what happens when you need a job again? You got to go through all this again. So getting someone who's on your side for the long term is absolutely more helpful because then they can help you with the long term game. And the long term game is absolutely the one that's better to play or better to get good at. Long term game being practicing your skills so that you can be a valuable asset to any teams in the future. Um, but yeah, it's hard to balance that long term game with the short term. I need a job now, and that's probably where we get all mixed up.
I think that goes for anything, though. Everybody wants the quick return before the investment. Um, but like, that's where I'm always con- not confused. I'm always torn on what to advise people. Like, when they're like, "Oh, what should I do?" And I'm like, "Oh, you could get a mentor." And they're like, "Yeah, I had one in boot camp." I'm like, "Yeah, but that was like the boot camp's short term solution to showing you like you have somebody to guide you through the course per se."
Right.
Mine was more like a, I don't know. I felt like it was a wasted 30-minute phone call sometimes, but that's maybe just my experience. So
Yeah, yeah, I think I agree. Um, there were times I learned more than others when it came to those mentorship sessions. Now, for me, if I'm trying to advise someone, like the only people I really speak with are people who are near the end of their boot camp or freshly out of their boot camp and still searching. And what I always try to focus on is trying to get them to answer their own the like emotional parts of the questions. For example, like how do I get real world experience? I try to give actionable steps, but then I also try to mention like, hey, this is probably not going to feel good to even start doing this, and you may put this off for weeks. But I promise you, if you try it or you try this strategy for like maybe 5 reps, 5 attempts, like a strategy of just reaching out to people, your 5th attempt is going to be much better than the first one. I promise you. And then please just try it again the next day. It's going to feel less bad the next day, and that's alluding to the emotional part of it.
It's like taking castor oil. It's horrible the first time, and by the end, you just get it done.
Mm-hmm. And like I know people who dread making updates to their portfolio or case studies or redoing the visuals, and I've realized like, oh yeah, that dread is not going to help you at all. I need you to be over that tomorrow or at the end of this phone call because it's simply not going to help. It'll only push you back. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I noticed this about myself when I was fresh out of boot camp and attending a bunch of webinars. Like just by attending webinars and receiving advice and hearing people talk about it, I was kind of just subconsciously tricked into thinking that I was doing the stuff, doing the actions, but knowing full well that I wasn't. And so that weird psychological trick ended up making me just super slow at the beginning. And I feel like a lot of people fall into that too, about just not really acting on the mentorship that's received.
I 100% agree with you. Not even outside of a mentorship standpoint, or even the webinars and all that. I was an art student, and this was before YouTube, but there were kids that would just watch the lectures, watch the, you know, practice techniques that you were supposed to go home and repeat a million times so that you commit it to memory and you're actually performing this act. And just they thought just by watching the lectures, being there and kind of trying them a few times, like, okay, now I'm an artist, now I can do that. Really, you think like that technique just sinks in like that? You didn't do anything to master it. You've done nothing to actually make it stick. And yeah, I think a lot of people fall into that though, especially with the internet now. Like, oh, I watched 10,000 YouTube videos on how to run whatever in Figma. And it's like, yeah, but how many times did you run those reps actually in Figma yourself?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing with mentorship. I mean, I was because I just had to have a little bathroom break, but just quickly before we just go on, so I just wanted to say I think mentorship is just where you get given guidance in a field that you wish to learn and become a specialist in. So I would say that would be my definition of mentorship, just to keep it short and sweet. But I think that yeah, what you guys were just saying, I I do agree with, and yeah, I just wanted to get in my definition of mentorship there because I missed that little overview.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, Zach. Carry on what you were saying.
Oh, yeah, it's fine. I was just responding to Will about how he said there's this thing where he just sees people, taking these webinars and everything else, and it's like they think they're done. Like they think they've done it. They've done the
Yeah,
work. They're there. They're watching it. It's happening, and okay, that's me doing the work. And in reality, you can watch a million videos on how to make a portfolio, but if you don't sit down, do the work, and make your portfolio, you've done nothing.
yeah. Sort of like when a black belt quits because they get to black belt level and they don't really think about what they've learned. They just want status of a black belt. I think that it is important. You have to do things yourself. I mean, recently there's a colleague and a friend of mine. I helped her to do animations in Figma. I showed you. I think I showed you guys what I was doing. Obviously, I can't say it, but can't say what it is. I have to keep it under wraps. But I think you guys saw it, and she was telling me she's tried to find videos on it, but quite often the information isn't conveyed, or there's a lot of fluff around it, or it's not something where it's consistently taught in steps, in methodical steps. Whereas with her, I just showed her how to do some animations. I created some resources, showed her how I do things, the variations, and then I said, okay, I want you to imitate me, and then once you've done that, I want you to get creative and explore on your own. And I think that that is what a good mentor should do. I don't think a mentor should tell you the answers. I think they should just give you the tools for finding those answers, or on the path of knowledge. But maybe that's just the way I like to learn and the way I like to teach, or mentor. But I think with nowadays, with all these videos on YouTube, I think anyone. I don't think we need mentors on basic things. So, for example, the other week I changed the shower because my shower had broken, so I got a new pipe, connector, washers, connected it all. And I did think, should I look on YouTube? Should I see what people are doing? And I thought, well, no, it's not. It's not rocket science. It's just simply connecting, having a washer, and making sure that the shower head is tightly affixed. So I think sometimes mentorship is good, but I do think that there has to be an understanding that you have to do things by yourself. You can't just you shouldn't just watch something and think, oh, okay, that's how it's done. I can do it. I mean, I think everyone has fallen into that trap. I have before. I think I might overestimate the
Same.
learning curve, or I might underestimate. I might overestimate my own ability to truly comprehend it. Who knows?
I, I mean, it happened to me with coding. I was taking coding courses, and I'd watch and read and do the textbook stuff, and then I'd get home and not do any code, and then I'd show up and try to do it the next time I had to do it, and then I didn't know what I was doing, even though I'd watched and learned, or thought I learned, but I wasn't actually writing the code. Like, I wasn't going home and playing with it. I wasn't toying with it. I wasn't learning anything. I wasn't experimenting. And I think that's where I think a lot of people should come to come to terms with the fact that if you're seeking a quick fix for anything, especially when it comes to mentorship, do you want a tutor or do you want a mentor? Do you want somebody who's going to meet with you twice a week and teach you how to do something, or do you want somebody you can come to 2 months, apart from each other, and and they have no idea what you're involved in? Like, I couldn't talk to my mentor about anything I was working on because I was on an NDA.
Yeah,
And so, how am I supposed to get answers? I can't. I can only roughly explain what's going on, and I
without giving anything
have to be
away.
very
Yeah,
and have to be careful about the ideas that I'm presenting to them, but at the same time, it was enough that I could at least bring a situation up, and then they would be like, well, here's personally in my experience with what I've gone through in my career, this is what I would have done, but I can't tell you that's what to do.
yeah. Well,
So
well, it's funny because when I learned coding, when I learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript all those years ago, about, well, now 15 to 20 years ago, the way I got into it, I didn't actually have anyone teach me. I just looked up, I just read, I was on an internet forum long before Reddit came along. Back in the days when we had so many internet forums, for different topics, whereas now it's all on Reddit or other ones. But the way I got into coding or programming was all
you
I
were a
did.
4chan guy.
Yeah, I didn't really want to say 4chan, but yeah, that's another one. And for those of you out there, it's not something. It's not a place I recommend. It makes Reddit look
Don't take it.
perfectly
Yeah,
tame.
don't take it lightly.
No, definitely not. Um, there are a few others as well, but they're long gone now. But yeah, I just learnt coding by looking up what HTML was. Okay, hypertext markup language, and I thought, how do you view HTML? You just simply right click and view source. And what I did was I copied a website's code, pasted it in Notepad because a long-time internet acquaintance told me that they did it in Notepad because there's no auto alignment. There's nothing where if you did it in Word, you have to change the borders and margins and everything else. But all I did was I just started copying and pasting and editing, seeing what worked. And then I thought, oh, actually, I quite like this. And then I went on W3 Schools, which is still going. They still offer free courses, and I've actually been here and there. I've been revising HTML because I've not used it in a long time now. But I guess you could
I'm a
say,
huge fan. I'm a huge fan of W3 School, and Free Code Camp is actually really good too.
yeah, yeah. Well, I only know of W3 Schools because well, it was the first website I came across. They've been going for a long, long time. Oh, excuse me, but yeah, it was great. I still revise it from time to time. Like I said, I haven't used programming languages since I was probably well, realistically, about maybe 18. Not that I've forgotten it where I can't understand it, but I don't program in it now because it's just, I got fed up of it. And also now we've got no code. But I don't know, I would say W3 Schools, a website was technically a mentor because I was still learning. But having said that, I did learn a lot just simply by copying, pasting, not knowing what I was doing, but I had an idea and I understood that if you change one thing, then you can change something else. If you change the color, just simply changing the color code for white to black, for example, or blue. I actually found that was a better learning curve for me than if I had someone who just sat down with me, figuratively speaking, and said, right, you have to have your HTML tag, your body tag, H1, P tag, and then the same tags with the forward slash in front. That wouldn't have worked for me. I got more fun in learning by being able to do it myself, which I guess substantiates my learning system of not needing a mentor who would. I wouldn't need to be. I wouldn't need to have my hand held, so to speak, for lack of a better way of expressing it. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to say about that. Actually, I don't know.
Mm.
Will, what do you think? What do you think about
I
learning methodologies with mentors and mentees?
I like that you mentioned that you learn better just doing. I find that I have the same experience. For example, I'm learning a no code app Bubble for my job, and I started by going straight to YouTube and not just watching a tutorial, but actually having Bubble open and doing the tutorial alongside.
Yeah,
And pausing the video whenever I needed, looking into the comments to see if anyone was confused about minute 4, second 17, stuff like that. And then I've also mentioned that I'm testing out Midjourney and I'm learning it by doing it. And I learned that I suck, but I suck slightly yet less now after spending a few hours. And so I've realized that I can learn the most by trying things myself. And that
yeah,
what I really need in a good mentor is simply someone who can ask me the questions that I don't know I need answers to. That's what I need personally the most.
See, I
Um,
think that's key to any good mentorship is they're
mhm,
not there to teach you anything. They're not there to tell you what to do. They're not going to hold your hand. They're going to be the one who looks at anything you've said to them or given them or shown them, and they're going to be like, okay,
yeah,
well, what about this, or this?
mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
Oh shit, I didn't think about that. And then, yep, you didn't think about that. So let's start thinking, huh? And that's kind of a good mentor right there. Like they're making your brain do its own work, and
yeah,
they're just there to they're just there to help you along the way as far as not letting you waste your time, if that makes sense. Like
yeah,
I wouldn't tell anybody who came to me for advice to oh yeah, go. You're spending the correct amount of time on portfolio layout, dude. It doesn't matter because everybody's going to give you different advice. Do your portfolio, and all
Yes.
I'm going to do is critique it if that's what you want, and you still fix it the way you want. I'm not going to tell you what's wrong with it or how to fix it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's
yeah,
perfect.
Yeah, that sums it up perfectly. Whenever I was, if I don't really want to say I mentored anyone, but when I was training people up or coaching or even just giving advice or helping people out, my approach was to not give them the answers. My approach was to teach them in a way where they don't just learn or pick up on the given subject, but in a way where they they find things out for themselves that will help them in other fields. So I like to teach the sort of practicality of something rather than the factuality, because I find for me, and this was how it was with my trainees when they gave me feedback, because I always insisted on my trainees or people I've coached giving me feedback as much as I gave them feedback. It wasn't required for them to do it, but I always wanted them to do it because I'm thinking, well, I can learn from them as much as they're learning from me, right? I can always improve. And that was the thing. I always made sure that they worked it out for themselves. Because for me, years ago when I was a teenager, I used to think only the result counted, not the method. But the problem with that is, okay, you get an answer, you've got an answer to something, but if you don't learn how to come to that answer, you're going to be stuck on something that is a different integer, like 1 + 1 = 2. Okay, you know it's 2, but why is it? The 1 + 1 is more useful than the 2, because you think, oh, I can just replace this one with another number and then the other one with another number, and you get different things. So I think it's really important to help guide people on the journey rather than the destination, and that they will find the destination for themselves. That was generally my philosophy in training, teaching, or mentoring, or just even giving general advice.
that's
And
the
it's a
good
good
way to
one.
go. You can't, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, unless anyone else has any other advice, we're running up on our time anyway. So
Yeah, well, I think I know we touched on this for about 5 minutes in the last episode, but I don't know. I would say that I think we've covered everything about mentorship that people can listen to this episode, walk away from, and perhaps either have a greater understanding of what it means, or perhaps it might even get them to reanalyze what they want from a mentor, I would say.
I guess I guess if I were to put any sort of period or exclamation point on the end of the episode, it's if you are considering paying for mentorship or coaching or whatever, make sure it's with someone, like we said before, who helps you do it yourself. Someone who asks you the questions you don't know that you need to answer, or someone who helps you think about the answer yourself, not someone who will just regurgitate the facts that you can already find on Google, YouTube, LinkedIn, etc.
Yeah. All right.
yeah,
Well,
I don't know why you'd pay for a mentorship. Actually, I think the person doing your mentorship, like that's the thing about ADP lists. Like people are volunteering to mentor people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I'm a professional in this field, and I'm more than happy to help somebody who wants the help. Like that's the other thing. Don't waste somebody's time if they're open to helping you.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think really you should pay for mentorship. I mean, and I don't think anyone holds the copyright on knowledge. I mean, the things I know, I'm more than willing to pass what I know on to someone else, and if they can use it, great. It's a good thing. But even if they can't use it, they may. For example, I have it quite often where I might be watching something like perhaps Dragon's Den or Shark Tank for you guys in America, and I think, okay, of course, watching that kind of show for years isn't going to make me an expert on business, but I do pick things up. Now, I don't harbor any ambitions to become a entrepreneur or a successful businessman, but I can still pass on that advice to someone who may be able to use it. So I think knowledge and mentorship, I think they should always be giving. Anyone who's serious about helping others and mentoring them, I think it should be a given. I mean, I would never charge for giving someone some advice, or if someone asked me to guide them for the next 2 or 3 months, I wouldn't charge them for that because I'm thinking, well, actually, I just get the enjoyment out of seeing someone else grow. And if I can help them on that journey, all the better. Well, I think we've pretty much covered everything. I don't know. I don't think you guys have anything else to add, really, do you? Just one last thing before we wrap up this week's episode.
That's all from me.
Yeah. All right. Well, as always, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. You can always contact us at our email, the framexframe.uxpod@gmail.com. By all means, reach out to us on our LinkedIn page, Frame by Frame. And of course, you're always welcome to contact any or all of us for tips, information, the benefit of our experience. And we'll always try to get back to you as soon as possible. And we always try to answer all of our questions that you guys pose to us. And then, with no more delay, we're going to wrap this up. So, thank you very much all for joining us, and we hope to see you or hear from you before the next episode, and you can hear from us on the next episode with the topic to be determined. Thank you, everyone, and good night.